Let's talk football. So scary incident happening in Serie A on Sunday evening. Fiorentina were playing Inter Milan in a game that unfortunately was abandoned due to an incident that happened, of course, during the game. And this was 22-year-old Edoardo Bove collapsed on the pitch. He's a player who is currently playing for Fiorentina on loan from Roma. Basically, it was very weird. He sort of bent down to tie his bootlaces up. He sort of stood up. He walked a few steps, and then he just collapsed. Like the way that he went down, it was just so weird. He sort of bent down to tie his bootlaces up, stood up, walked a few steps, and then he just collapsed. Thankfully, he is doing well. He did pull through, and he is out of intensive care at the moment. Intensive care now, which is good news for him, and obviously good news for his family. Obviously, this is horrible. But you hear like incidents like this often in players' careers short. Well, I think of players collapsing on the pitch, the one that always comes to, well, there's a few that always come to my mind. The first one is Abdul Nouri, who played for Ajax, when he collapsed on the pitch while playing for Ajax against Werder Bremen, in a pre-season friendly about 6-7 years ago. Again, very young player, a promising young player, who unfortunately had his career cut short, and he was never able to reach the heights that he could have reached because he suffered a cardiac arrest on the pitch and was left with permanent brain damage as a result of that. Obviously, you've got players that have returned to football. Obviously, Christian Eriksen obviously collapsed on the pitch for Denmark against Finland at the Euro 2020. Euro 2020, and obviously collapsed. Thankfully, he's now back playing, which is good. I think the scariest one, though, every cardiac arrest on the pitch is scary, but I think the scariest one was Fabrice Muamba, when he collapsed whilst playing for Bolton against Tottenham away in the FA Cup. Obviously, I think he was in cardiac arrest for 78 minutes that night, and it's a miracle that he pulled through, that he survived that. Imagine how it must. I think obviously there was an off-duty cardiac surgeon there, and he basically asked to be let onto the pitch, and they let him onto the pitch, and he was helping in the aid to resuscitate Fabrice Muamba, and then he said they got him in the ambulance, and they said to him, get him to the Bethnal Green Chest Hospital, because he had a specialist team on standby waiting, and obviously they took him to the Chest Hospital, and there was a lot of security outside that hospital for quite a few days. Obviously the only people that were being let to see him were his family, obviously the Bolton manager and players. Obviously, I wonder how it must feel for a player. It was like, in the lead up to incidents like that, it's like, do they know that something's wrong? It's like, do they know that something bad is happening, bad is about to happen? Is that, do players ever, get any warning signs that something's about to go wrong? I feel for anyone that has ever had to witness something like that, witness a player collapsing on the pitch. It must be horrendous for for the teammates as well. You've seen how emotional, moments like that can be for players, because it's like you don't know if your teammate is going to pull through or survive. He's going to pull through, or, is they're going to pass away, and thankfully I think it's been quite a long time since, well, not, quite a long time, but it's not a regular thing now that players are dying on the pitch. There were a lot of incidents back in the day where players collapsed on the pitch and unfortunately died. Some of which were quite young, especially Mark Vivian Foe. He was still quite young when he collapsed whilst playing for Cameroon. I mean, it's just horrible, for the fans, when you see it, for the fans that see that happen, when who are actually in the stadium and actually, witnessing things like that. Like, no one, that's not something that anybody should have to witness. Like, I'm glad that in this instance, Edoardo Bove, I'm glad he's doing well. My thoughts, go out to him, and I wish him a speedy recovery. My thoughts with his family as well. Like that, as they said that his, I think it was his mum. I think it was his mum. She fainted, in the stands as well. When that happened. I mean, any mum, I feel like that's any, mum's reaction when they find out that something like that has happened. That it's scary, I mean, obviously 22, it's sad to think that, this has happened to a player that, only 22 years of age, and he's collapsed on the pitch like that. It's scary for that to happen to, someone that's so young. But, this is the sad thing, is that, it doesn't matter how old you are, or how fit you are and how healthy you are, you can still suffer cardiac arrest. You don't have to be unhealthy, you don't have to be old to suffer cardiac arrest. You can be fit, young, fit and healthy, and still suffer cardiac arrest, which, like, obviously Edoardo Bove did on Sunday. Fit and healthy, young footballer, playing decent football, collapsed on the pitch, at 22 years of age, and it's just a horrible incident, like a horrible thing to, it's never nice to hear about incidents like this. And, I mean, obviously, thankfully, incidents like this don't happen regularly. There was an incident of that nature that happened in the Premier League. I think it was last season, when Tom Lockyer, I think it was around December last year, I think it was, Tom Lockyer collapsed on the pitch when I was playing for Luton. Against Bournemouth. He'd actually collapsed on the pitch last summer as well. I was playing for Luton Town in the playoff final against Coventry. He collapsed on the pitch then at Wembley. So yeah, I mean, I think he's retired from playing as well now, Tom Lockyer. I mean, it's just, it's sad because, for a player that can be in the prime of their careers, it's sad that, players can have their careers cut short by these kind of incidents. Like they just randomly collapse on the pitch. Like, it's obviously it would have been terrifying for, everyone involved. I like the way when a player collapses, like their teammates sort of form that kind of shield around them, so that people can't see what's going on. Like, people can't really see what's happening, so to speak. To be honest, I think he'll be glad that he's survived. His family will be glad that he's survived this. Because, it's horrible when you hear it. It's horrible when things like that happen. Especially when you think about, the fact that this is a player who was so young as well. Like, this is the thing, like, a player that's 22 years old, a year younger than me. A young lad that's only a year younger than me, and he's collapsed on the pitch. It's a horrible situation, and as I said, it reminds me very much of Abdul Nouri. Again, he was such a promising young player, and I think that had he not suffered that cardiac arrest, he would have gone on to be one of the best players, for any club that he played for. But unfortunately, he was never able to reach the heights that he could have reached because, he suffered that cardiac arrest and was left with permanent brain damage. And that happened at a time when he was kind of in the prime of his career. He was still young. He still had quite a few years, ahead of him. It wasn't like he was close to retirement age. He still had quite a few years ahead of him. He still had quite a long career ahead of him, and I think that he would have had a great career, had he not suffered that cardiac arrest and collapsed on the pitch. I'm just glad that this incident in itself has had a positive outcome, and that the player in question is doing well and is out of intensive care. That's the best news you want to hear. It's the best news all round. It's the best news for for him, his family, for his teammates. They'll be so relieved that he's doing well and that he's not, and that this hasn't had a tragic, this particular incident hasn't had a tragic ending, hasn't had a tragic outcome. Because so many, it's sad to think, when you think about that, there've been so many incidents like that where players have collapsed on the pitch and have tragically lost their lives. It's really sad to think about, but unfortunately, things like this do happen in football. And obviously it's always scary when these things do happen, but obviously, I think the good thing about it is that, these sorts of incidents are not incidents that genuinely tend to happen regularly. They do happen, but they don't happen often, and I think that is a good thing, is that these sorts of incidents are not incidents that happen all that often, so, there's not really anything to be too majorly worried about, because these incidents don't happen too often. It's like, it's not like you're gonna go to a Premier League game and see someone collapse on the pitch. It's happened. Obviously, it happened in the Premier League last season, but, I think that was the first time in a long, long time that we've actually seen something like that happen in the Premier League. Because I think, with before that incident, I can't remember there ever being another incident where a player collapsed on the pitch in the Premier League. Maybe there has been. Obviously, hopefully he'll, this won't have any effect on him Bove playing football. Hopefully he'll be able to return back to playing football, but it's obviously a very sad incident that has obviously resulted in his untimely pass, and obviously his resulted that is obviously it's a horrible incident for him and his family. It's not an incident that we ever want to hear about in football, but sadly you do hear about these incidents from time to time. And it's like when you hear about incidents like this, you think, your thoughts immediately turn to everyone involved. The player themselves, their families, their teammates, the fans who obviously witnessed that. That's a very scary thing to witness. You see a player collapse on the pitch like that. Obviously, no one should ever have to witness something like that. But sadly, it's something that sometimes, it does happen, and obviously, I can't imagine how it must feel for people, for those that have witnessed something like that, where they've been to a football game and they've seen something like that happen in front of them. It must be terrifying for those that have witnessed things like that. But I'm glad that I'm glad that this incident has had a positive outcome, and that the player, that Edoardo Bove, is doing well, and and I just thought I would do a little video talking about that and talking about something like this. I thought it was an important thing to talk about. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you for another one soon. Bye bye.